The month of May begins with a Scorpio full moon. It not only has a Scorpio full moon beginning the month, but we have another full moon happening at the end of the month as well. So that will be a blue moon. If you have heard this term, it means 2 full moons in a month. And so this is the first full moon of May. When the sun and the moon are exactly opposite, that is what we call a full moon. And that is also why full moons are known to be a little bit more volatile, because there is an opposition, which is a harsh aspect, happening between the sun and the moon. And with the Scorpio full moon, we already have a lot of intensity, we already have a lot of feelings, and the moon is in her detriment in Scorpio. The moon's favorite place to be in is Taurus, which is opposite Scorpio, which makes it the most uncomfortable in Scorpio. The moon tends to already feel things intensely. The moon is extremely sensitive. The moon moves faster than any other celestial body. So the moon wants to be able to move and change and adapt, because it's always changing. It's never stagnant. It moves a sign every 2.5 days or so. And Scorpio is fixed water. Fixed as in not as easy to change, which is kind of paradoxical because Scorpio is about change. It's about transformation. It's about death in its truest essence, and Taurus is about life. So this is a really intense axis for us to be on. Taurus is financial stability. Scorpio is emotional depth. Taurus is wanting to feel comfortable in the body and in life. Scorpio has a tendency to need to learn how to sit with the discomfort. And Taurus is kind of like easygoing, like life is good, like no worries. And then Scorpio is intensity and feeling things deeper than everyone else. Not only is this a full moon, but it is also an ancient pagan celebration known as Beltane or Beltane. And so what Beltane is about is the sacred marriage between the green man and the May Queen. Essentially, the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine within us. And the theme of that is huge for this full moon as well when we look at the chart. The Scorpio full moon falls on the 1st of May, happening at 1:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Venus Day, Friday. So there's a lot to get into. We're going to talk about all of it. We're going to start with the fact that this is happening on the 1st of May. And so there's that one number. And then we also have the sun and the moon at 11 degrees. The sun will be at 11 degrees of Taurus. The moon will be at 11 degrees of Scorpio. 11, 11. So there's 2 11s. There's happening on the 1st. And so we have that 1, 1, which is adding up to 2, which is symbolic of coupling or union or pairing, partnerships, whatever it could look like, because this is not going to be exclusive to romantic relationships. But then we also have that 1 energy, which is the May 1st. And so what happens when 2 people come together? If they are interested in having children, they create a 3rd person, right? So that 1 + 1 doesn't always just equal 2, it can equal 3 in this case. And so there's a very creative energy here with Scorpio already being a water sign. Water signs tend to be on the more creative side, and it's a feminine water sign. So Scorpio is feminine water, fixed water, meaning it's a little bit more difficult for Scorpio to accept change, even though it's about transformation. we'll get into it. This water energy is feminine, and then Scorpio is ruled by Mars in traditional astrology, which is inherently a very masculine planet. It is the planet of war. It rules over men. It rules over direct energy, and that's what I mean when I say masculine. Direct energy versus receptive energy, which is the feminine. And so Scorpio already has this nature of a sacred marriage in its archetype, right? This is a feminine element, water, ruled by a masculine planet. And then we have its modern ruler, which is Pluto. And this full moon is squaring Pluto. So there's an extra Pluto element to this full moon that is also a harsh aspect known as a square. Squares bring challenges, and they bring pressure, and they bring a confrontation of some sort. And with Scorpio, this can be a very internal confrontation of whatever it is that we are no longer tolerating, whatever it is that we can no longer turn a blind eye to, whatever it is that we can no longer shove under the rug, because Scorpio rules over the emotions and the parts of life that we like to shove under the rug, that we like to push in a corner, that we like to scapegoat, that we like to demonize, and just kind of, tell people not to talk about it. It's not socially acceptable. It's not polite. It's uncomfortable, right? It's creating something uncomfortable. And so a lot of the time, Scorpio has a really hard time. If you have major Scorpio placements, I feel you. Like, scapegoating is a real thing for Scorpio. And so we're going to be forced to see where we have scapegoated others, and where we have been scapegoated, and where we have pushed down things that we might consider to be more unpleasant or unsavory or taboo or whatever. And with the square to Pluto, Pluto is in Aquarius. Aquarius rules over breaking the norms and breaking the status quo. It's the sign that comes after Capricorn. Capricorn is that it has the tendency to be a very compliant sign. Aquarius is the rebel, ruled by Uranus and Saturn. So we're going to have a lot of Uranus energy involved in this as well, because even though the moon is not making any aspects to Uranus, we have just had Uranus move into Gemini on April 25th. So just 6 days before this full moon. And so Uranus and Gemini will be there for 7 years. For the next 7 years, we're going to be working with this archetype of the rebel Uranus in the sign of the mind. And so there is a changing of the way we perceive reality. There's a changing of the way that we communicate with others and relate to our direct environment. Gemini rules over our neighborhoods and our closer knit communities. And Aquarius is that larger community. So not only is this Uranus energy involved with our close communities, but also on the world stage. And so with that square to Pluto, it's going to be a push to look at where we are still holding on to a mask and presenting a mask or a fake version of ourselves to others. Uranus in Gemini is also breaking the social norms with how we chameleonize ourselves, right? How we adapt to being in groups and how we socialize, and we might be playing on the surface level as opposed to maybe showing those unsavory parts of ourselves because we want to be liked and we want to be socially acceptable. Gemini is really good at blending in. It's an adaptable sign. It's mutable air. And so it's very light. It's very likable. It's very charismatic, with Scorpio on the other side being the intense, deep only, maybe even like resting bitch face energy, you know, like could be walls up to protect themselves to a detriment, and it could be closed off. It could be very off-putting, even intimidating. And so, you know, there's very different energies working here. And then we come back to that Pluto in Aquarius, which is another air sign. And Aquarius does rule over that larger scale community. So, like, on the whole, like our collective consciousness. But it also is ruled by Saturn. And Saturn in Aquarius also have these feelings of perhaps being ostracized, being on the outside of the group, feeling like no one ever understands me because I'm so different and I have this like different perspective. Aquarius has this perspective that you might compare it to being out in space, like so separate from everything, but having this really wide view and really, you know, maybe even abstract and ethereal view because you've taken yourself out of the equation, and on the outside you see things from the outside in. And, you know, you can also maybe see things that aren't really there yet, right? Things that are going to come in the future. Aquarius rules over the future. Uranus is very futuristic energy, inventive energy, innovative energy. So really amazing energy. Just can be difficult to be part of this status quo, earthly, 3D reality. And so what the square to Pluto, I think, is showing us too is like we are becoming more aware of where the future is headed, and there's a pressure there to ask us to change so that we can become more adaptable, so that we can survive in the future, right? Because like I said, Scorpio rules over death, and there is maybe like a death happening in our lives. We're seeing that there's death around us happening on a massive scale, and that is, you know, that's not an abstract concept. That is real, and that is intense. And a lot of astrologers, I feel like so far I've listened to, have been kind of sugarcoating this full moon, and Scorpio is the one sign that you really cannot sugarcoat no matter what. That's like the whole point, right? Scorpio is fierce. Scorpio is truth. Scorpio is depth, and it is intimacy. And these are things that cannot really be packaged up nicely with a bow, you know? It's the gritty parts of life, because it's another Mars-ruled sign after we just had our Aries new moon, which is ruled by Mars. We now have another Mars-ruled sign for the full moon, Scorpio. And so we're still working with these gritty themes. We're actually working with a lot of the same themes as the new moon, because we have where the new moon was, we still have Chiron there and Mercury meeting up at that point, and Eris. So there's a healing of the mind, because Mercury rules over Gemini, rules over Virgo, rules the mind and communication. So connecting that piece to the Uranus and Gemini, because that's a big shift, and we're going to be feeling that for 7 years, and we're really starting to get a taste of what that's going to look like. And Uranus is settling into whatever house it is in your chart, whatever house Gemini is in. And that's shaking up the themes of that house, right? So for instance, Uranus and Gemini moved into my 12th house. So I'm thinking of that in terms of developing more of my psychic abilities, more of my intuition, more of my connection with spirit, more of my perhaps alone time as well, because 12th house can really be isolating and can be needing that alone time, because it's very energetically sensitive. And so looking at that would be a really important thing to do. Also, of course, looking at where you have Taurus in your chart, which is where the sun is going to be, and looking at wherever you have Scorpio in your chart, because the Scorpio full moon, there's nothing else there in Scorpio in the chart, but with it squaring Pluto, it's getting like that boost from Pluto, and in a more challenging way rather than a supportive way. So we got that double whammy Pluto energy. And then for the last thing, if you are someone who's going to be looking at your chart and wanting to know what's going on for this full moon, I would also go ahead and tell you to look at where you have Aries in your chart, because we have Mercury at 27 degrees, we have Mars at 16 degrees, and then we, of course, have Saturn, Neptune, Saturn at 9 degrees, Neptune at 3 degrees. And like I said, Chiron is conjunct Mercury at 27 degrees. That's an exact conjunction. So that's 5 planets in Aries, y'all. That is more than a stellium in Aries. And of course, we had 2 stelliums in Aries last new moon. So we still have at least half of that energy still being activated. That Chiron energy of healing. And then, of course, like I said, actually Eris is still at 25 degrees of Aries too. So 2 degrees off from where Chiron and Mercury are meeting, but that is still a close conjunction. And so Eris is the divine feminine, the dark feminine that has been scorned and wronged and betrayed. We also have Chiron, the wounded healer, which is dealing with masculine wounds. Where has the masculine wounded us? Where has the masculine been toxic in ways that has created a wound? And then we have Uranus in Gemini, which is going to be conjunct Sedna. And I am going so deep with all these asteroids because that's what Scorpio would want me to do, and because these are really important asteroids and these are long-term. Eris doesn't move very fast, Chiron doesn't move super fast, and these are big themes that have been playing out for a long time that I think are really worth mentioning. And Sedna is very scorpionic in her nature as well. She is a water goddess. She rules over the Arctic depths. So she is an Inuit goddess, the Alaskan Native American tribe. And Sedna's story is about betrayal. It's about breaking a patriarchal system of needing to just listen to your father and marry who he says you're going to marry, which she does not. And she instead marries a mystical shaman man who is a half bird, half man. It's a weird story. And the story is different too, depending on where you find yours. But this is the one that I know, and I am going to tell it today. So she marries this bird man who promises her that she will never want again. She will always just be, all her needs will be met, and she will have her dream life. And so she agrees to marry him, in which she then is taken off to his island in the middle of nowhere. Some say it's an island, some say it's a cliff edge, like a cave bird situation. And she realizes that that life that he promised her is not gonna happen. And so she's distraught. She feels so betrayed by him. She trusted him, and she gave her whole life to him by marrying him, right? And she is just in despair. And so then her father, who is already pissed that she wouldn't marry who he told her to, comes to retrieve her, finds that she is in that state, and he takes her back in a boat with him. At which time the Birdman is very upset that his wife is being taken away, and so there's a epic battle where the Birdman is attacking the father in the boat. There's a raging storm that ensues as well. And in the heat of the moment, the father throws Sedna overboard to try to appease the Birdman so that the attack will stop. And in that moment, Sedna is thrown off the boat. She's clinging onto the edge of the boat with her hands and her fingers just white knuckling this thing, even though she doesn't really want to be with her father. She's just been betrayed. She's just been thrown overboard. But she has no choice because it's either get back in the boat or drown in the ocean or go back with the Birdman. And so all of these different things are happening, and she's just like, none of them are good options. And so she's holding on until finally her father once again betrays her and chops her fingers off so that she can't hold on to the boat anymore. She falls into the ocean. She begins to sink. Her fingers are thrown into the ocean as well, at which point they are transformed into beautiful sea creatures like seals and jellyfish and whale and dolphins and all these different beautiful sea creatures. And she sinks to the bottom of the ocean, the Arctic Ocean, and she is transformed into the goddess that she is known as today. Of course, she is revered as a goddess and worshipped and seen as a very powerful deity, but also she is feared, and she is extremely associated with grief and with betrayal and with a woman who was not treated the way that she should have been treated. And so, with that Sedna energy being where Uranus and Gemini is, maybe we're realizing after its time in Taurus our self-worth, and we are realizing where we have been settling, and where we have been accepting less than we deserve, and we have been giving ourselves away or trusting people that we shouldn't have been trusting because we just wanted connection. And then we have Chiron conjunct Eris, and so we're healing this feminine wound where Eris is themes of being the woman that wasn't included, the woman that people were jealous of. There's themes of jealousy because she throws a golden apple into the middle of a wedding where the goddesses fight over it because she throws it in the middle and says, "For the fairest." And so Aphrodite, Athena, and Hera are all scrambling and fighting over this golden apple. And this conflict is supposedly what began the Trojan War as well. So there's a very warlike energy there, especially with Eris being in Aries, ruled by Mars, the god of war, being in the middle of this Aries stellium. There's a lot of, internal war energy, and there's a lot of outside war energy that we're obviously very aware of. The square to Pluto in Aquarius could really be showing us on the world stage the secrets that need to come out. We have already seen a lot of secrets come out, and we still have a lot of reckoning to do with those things, but there could be more things coming out now. It could just be a simple reckoning of what really has come out over the past few months, year even, and realizing what gives, something's got to give at this point, because there is such pressure from that Pluto that it's what are we doing? Are we bypassing this? Are we just not talking about it because it's uncomfortable? Are we just gonna shove it under the rug because it's easier for us to do that than it is to deal with it? And, this is dealing with all the sexual scandals, and this is also dealing with the aliens that we supposedly have admitted are real. It's so much, right? and all the AI and the technology, all of that alien technology stuff, that's the Aquarius bit. And then the sexual scandals and the, perversions and all this other stuff, that's the Scorpio bit. So any of those themes could be highlighted at this point, and I think all of them should be, because all of that stuff is stuff that we are just pretending didn't happen to keep the peace, and with Uranus and Gemini, we're going to be having those conversations that are bringing deep awakenings, because Uranus is the planet of awakenings. And, Uranus rules over that Aquarius, Pluto. So we're all of these themes are connected, and we're being asked to get real. Aquarius wants us to get authentic, and Scorpio wants us to go deeper, underneath the surface. Really get to the core of it all, right? Scorpio is the investigator. So there's maybe something that we're investigating a little bit deeper for ourselves in our internal journey. And then on a grand scale, we could be really just wanting to know what is going on. Like, sure, we know what we know, but there's definitely more to the story that we haven't heard, and we have a right to know, and there needs to be transparency, and there needs to be a reckoning, right? So all of that is really kind of just been running under the surface for a while, and now it is coming to a head, and it's like, okay. And I don't want to zoom too far out and talk about just the world stuff the whole time, because Scorpio is actually a very deeply internal sign. It's very protective. It's very, I always say this with Scorpio energy, like, when's the last time you saw a scorpion just hanging out in the world? Like, no, they live underground. They live in holes and caves and dark places and underneath rocks, and you don't see them because they are protecting themselves. And rightly so, because if you see a scorpion, most people are gonna straight up just stomp it without a hesitation, because it's creepy looking, it's like got 8 legs, it's got that stinger, so like there's a level of fear that is absolutely invoked as soon as you see a scorpion. And no matter who you are, really, like, even people that like are like, yeah, scorpions are cool, like, I'm sure they might have had to get over that at some point and get to that point, right? So we're working with fear. We are being asked to drop whatever fears are in the way of becoming our true authentic self, the true authentic self that Pluto and Aquarius is going to be calling forth for the next 20 years. And that part of us that is deeply needed in the collective at this point. Our authentic self is deeply needed. Our gifts are needed. Aquarius is very psychic, and Scorpio is very psychic. So there's a lot of like need for us to all do our own work individually, so that we can show up collectively in the way that we are needed, with our gifts honed in and refined and ready to be offered to the world, because we have a job to do. And when we lose sight of that, we can really fall into that Scorpio despair, and we can really fall into those dark places and get caught in those dark thoughts. And with that Mercury conjunct Chiron and Eris, we really could be understanding what dark thoughts we've been having and what those core woundings around those dark thoughts could be, right? Getting deeper with that Scorpio. So we are paying attention to what we are afraid of, where we are still wearing a mask, where we are afraid of our own power. This is a huge theme for Scorpio, and because of all this Aries energy, Mars is power. Pluto is also power, but Mars and Pluto both have this like power element to them. And where have we been misusing power? Where has our power dynamics become toxic? And where have we forgotten what true power is. And so Scorpio rules over the reproductive system, and it rules sex, and it rules sacred union as well, but it also rules Kundalini energy, which essentially is sexual energy. Kundalini energy is the creative force of the universe. And the creative force, like I said in the beginning, when two people come together, they make a third. There's a creative aspect to this sexual energy. It creates life. And this is deep stuff, right? Like, this is deep karma. When you have a child, you are passing down your karma. When you create something, you are creating something from your own life force energy. So it has your life force in it. And, you know, whether that's something that's being created like a person, like a baby, or just art, you know, all of this is very creative energy. And the dark forces at work at this time on planet Earth are very much aware that sexual and creative energy is the most powerful energy on the face of the earth. And so that's why we've seen emergence of sex working, and we've seen, you know, a lot of people starting to sell their bodies in one way or another, selling their sexual energy and be more outwardly expressive with their sexual energy. I think with this full moon, it's going to be trining the nodes of fate. So the north node and the south node. The north node is in Pisces. The south node is in Virgo. And with the south node in Virgo, we're letting go of shame around the body and around everything. But with it being trine Scorpio, we're letting go of sexual shame. But we, of course, like everything, it's a very delicate balance, and we need to recognize when things are becoming toxic and when we are leaking our energy and when we are using the power that we do have for good or for bad. And so this Kundalini energy is inherently neutral. Like I said, it's simply creative, but we can use it to create good things, or we can use it in a not good way as well. And it can backfire on us and like become more karma for us. So I'm not here to tell anybody how to live their lives. I am here for us to all take what I've just said and to ask ourselves whether or not the choices that we're making are contributing good things and creating good things in the world, or if they're creating things that are bringing us deeper into the darkness, and they are, you know, like exacerbating our shadows and exacerbating our core wounds. So stuff like that. And like I said, I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm here to tell you that we are in a journey of letting go of shame. So whatever that looks like for you. I think that with it being trine to the nodes, there could be a aspect of realizing where our escapism with Pisces stuff has hit a wall, and maybe even like, I think with the trine, we're going to hopefully have this, you know, supportive energy, because a trine is supportive. Instead of maybe seeing bad things happening, I'm not going to say there's not going to be bad things happening, because there's a lot of Martian energy as well. Mars is very troublesome, confrontational, can be. It can also be very ambitious, so that's the flip side of that. But so there could be, if we've been dealing with, you know, toxic habits, with escapism, with addiction, with psychosis, with needing to be in a rehabilitation state for whatever reason, there could be something coming to a head at this time with that sort of situation. So let's come back to what other main aspects that we see. We also have the moon trining Jupiter in Cancer. And so because we already have that trine to Pisces, And then we also have a trine to Jupiter. That's a grand water trine. Those are all 3 water signs, Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer. All 3 trining in a supportive aspect. What does this mean? Water signs are, like I said, emotional. They're highly intuitive. They're highly creative. There's a lot of creative energy available to us at this point. And there is a lot of healing energy. So that creative energy can be used if we turn it inward to create a more safe environment for ourselves, Jupiter in Cancer, to heal the body, Jupiter in Cancer, to heal the emotional wounds that we've been through, whatever has happened to us in the past year of Jupiter in Cancer. Hopefully we have learned how to work with our emotions in a higher way, in a way that we've learned, right? We've learned, if for good or for bad, we have learned how to work with our emotions more in this Jupiter in Cancer year that we've been through since last June. And so, you know, if there is something that's happening, a situation, like I've said, with creating, like, looking at our Kundalini energy and where that's funneled to, or where it is being taken advantage of, you know, is that something that has been safe for us? Is it emotionally safe? Is it feeling like you really feel like you belong? And that square to Pluto, again, in Aquarius, could be like, I just don't belong here. Like a feeling of like, no one ever will understand me. And with that trine to Jupiter, it's like, don't forget that you do belong and that you are cared for and that you are protected. Jupiter has a very protective energy, and as well as Cancer. Honestly, this trine to Jupiter in Cancer is really helping us out here, because Jupiter is a very powerful energy. It's a very powerful planet. It's the largest planet, and so it packs a big punch. With Cancer being Jupiter's exaltation, which means its happiest place to be, it can function really well there. It is extra protective, it's extra strong, and Cancer is the crab, and it has that protective shell, so there's a double protective energy with this Jupiter in Cancer. And so don't forget that we're protected. That trine to the North Node in Pisces is still reminding us to trust in the unknown, to trust in not having a plan, to trust in, whatever we put our faith into, we have to trust in that now, and trust that our divine timing is right on time, even if it doesn't look like the plan that we had, right? The plans that we had is that South Node Virgo. Like, we're letting go of all of that, and we're letting go of any victimhood mentalities as well with South Node Virgo. Letting go of shame, letting go of having rigid ideas about what things should look like, letting go of needing to know the details, letting go of, any neurosis that has been plaguing us, right? Virgo can really be that anxiety piece, that worrying about the future, and so it steals the present moment from us. And we can lean into that faith, and like I said, that is not very easy to do, but it is what we have to do, and we have to surrender, and that's just the time we're in right now, and it's difficult, but it is where we've all been needing to grow, because, especially with Uranus and Taurus being there for the last 7 years, we have had to learn how to create stability in the body, and we've had to learn how to create stability in the midst of great uncertainty and great instability. Otherwise, we become completely burnt out. We become completely disconnected from our bodies. We become completely dysregulated in every way, shape, or form. And if you're there, if you are someone who's there, please know I'm not blaming you. It's absolutely understandable that a lot of us are there, but we're hitting a wall with that, and we are really, we are maybe feeling like we're in one of the darkest places that we've ever been, and we can't go on like this. And so whatever death is taking place in your life, know that that death and whatever is dying is going to be acting as compost for the new rebirth. There is a cycle in life that is birth, life, death, and rebirth. So knowing that the soul is eternal, Pluto rules over the soul cannot die. And even if parts of us are dying, think of the seasons and how death comes in winter to everything, but it always comes back. And so there is a natural cycle that we have to trust in, even if we feel like we will never come back. There is always hope that the trine to Jupiter is still giving us that little boost of optimism as well. Jupiter is very optimistic. And you know, what sign comes after Scorpio? It's Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. So the moon is going to move on to Sagittarius on May 2nd, late in the day. And so we really are being asked to sit in the depths and sit in the darkness with the Scorpio, but know that the light always comes after the darkest point. And you know, Scorpio is very much associated with that Phoenix rising, but really that Phoenix rising energy is the Sagittarius part. That is what comes after Scorpio. So just know that it's coming. Just know that because Scorpio is so deep and dark and intense, it's a necessary part of our journey that we can't bypass and we can't skip over. And so again, with that square to Pluto, there could be a level of bypassing because Aquarius can be really avoidant and it can be very distant and cold emotionally, like disconnected from its emotional body. So, you know, if there are people in your life that are really just like going all in with this AI, you know, new reality, and they have been more emotionally cold to you since then, or since it started to be part of their lives, just know that is the nature of technology. It's cold. It needs to be cold. When machines get overheated, they break down. And so, you know, there's a cold and calculating aspect to this Pluto and Aquarius for the next 20 years. And we really have to check that because any of us are subjected to falling into that trap, but we want to stay on the more innovative, inventive, progressive, futuristic, those aspects of Aquarius. Those are the ones that we need right now. And to some level, a level of detachment could be helpful with this Scorpio emotional roller coaster, especially with all the water signs working together, it being like triple the water energy, squaring Pluto, like squaring the Lord of the Underworld, taking us to the depths of everything. And so there could be a level of detachment that is assisting us, but I think maybe it's more so like asking us to detach, like I said, with that Sedna piece, like what are we still clinging on to, white knuckling, that is like just not, we have to let go. And even if we don't decide to let go, somebody else is going to come and chop those fingers off, whether we like it or not. And so whatever, if there's a situation that came to your head about that story, like you already know what it is, and there's no denying it anymore. And only you get to make those decisions because you have free will. And that all that Aries energy that we have too, still, it's like only you can save yourself. Only you can make the decision to change your life. Only you can advocate for yourself. And we deeply, deeply need everyone to advocate for themselves strongly at this point, strongly and bravely. And it does take a lot of bravery to be ourselves. It does take a lot of bravery to break the status quo. It does take a lot of bravery to show up fully and authentically and say, here I am, here is my heart, like for a scorpion to come out from under its rock and say, here I am, world, please don't crush me, because there is a real fear there. And there's a real fear to any of us opening up our hearts and showing the world who we really are, and showing those shadowy parts of us that we have pushed for so long down. And if there are people in your life that are shaming you, or that are not making you feel safe, not making you feel connected to source, not feeding your creative energy, right? Like encouraging you to be more creative, or like do your passions, or do your mission, if they're taking you away from your soul's path, we're cutting them off. Aries and Mars is very like, I'm cutting these people off, and I'm not afraid to walk alone. I'm not afraid to do it first, even when no one else has done it before. I think watching that new moon in Aries would be really helpful, again, if you want a little refresher on all that Aries energy, because there's a lot there, and I'm going to avoid trying to repeat myself too much. But know that this is a time for us to work with our own internal world, be alone, and to advocate for ourselves, hear our own thoughts and words and wounds, our mental narratives with that Mercury, Chiron, Eris conjunction. And it's like, only you can harness your own power. Only you can remember your true power, and remember who you are, and know who you are, and advocate for your needs. Create a sense of safety if you're in an unsafe situation. Like, no one's coming to save us. And that part is very, very abundantly clear with our government systems being where they are. And with this war between men and women, and, there's these themes of the sacred marriage of the masculine and feminine, with Beltana and with the full moon. And in the world, we're seeing like this movement of like decentering men, and like taking down the patriarchy, and like bringing women and children back to the center in a matriarchal sense. And we have had a lot of Venus energy. We've had Venus and Uranus both enter Gemini within a day of each other. So like big shakeups, big conjunction between Venus and Uranus. So our relationships have been shooken up, and we've been awakened to what's really going on, and our illusions have been shattered, and all this and all this. We're redefining what it even looks like to be in sacred union with someone, and to be truly like mirrors of each other, right? Gemini is like that twin. It's the Lover's card in the tarot, and it's that mirror, that shadow twin, and that conscious twin, the Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the immortal and the mortal. And there's a reflective quality to the moon. When the moon is in any sign, it's reflecting back to us our subconscious, and the subconscious, perhaps unconscious qualities of the sign. And so for Scorpio, it is about relationships. It can be about relationships. It can be about, who are we sharing our intimate energy with? Who are we sharing our Kundalini energy with? And are we needing to take back our energy? Are we needing to reevaluate who we share it with, and how we even view it in a, we as a society are being shown that sexual energy is not just sexual energy. Like, there is so much power there. It is the most creative, the most powerful force on earth is this Kundalini sexual creative energy. And like I said, there are beings and people and entities aware that that is the truth of the matter, and it is using that for evil and corrupt, perverted purposes. And it's up to us to reclaim our sovereignty. Sovereignty is a big Aries word, and really take back our power and really just protect it, and know that it is sacred, and know that when we come together in sacred union, that is a very powerful process, and it's okay for us to take time to be alone because we don't want to just share it with anyone. And we, with that trine to Pluto, it's like maybe we're connecting with spirit more and connecting with our intuition more instead of the opposite side of the spectrum, which could be like, I just want connection. Like, I'm just a baby. I need connection. I'm codependent. I'm obsessive with Scorpio. Like, I'm obsessed with people. Like, life isn't worth it if I don't have my partner. And it's like, there can be both sides of that happening. But which one is happening with us, and can we get brutally honest about what's happening with us and really ask ourselves if that is the cycle that we want to continue? Because right now we're given, with Uranus and Gemini, we're being given a beautiful opportunity to break cycles. And whatever cycles are keeping us stuck, can we look at what frozen emotions are around these core woundings? And I say frozen emotions because that's fixed water. That's Scorpio. Fixed water is also could be like a swamp where it's water that's not moving. And Taurus and Scorpio are both fixed signs. Taurus is the most stubborn sign because it's fixed earth. And I've been talking about this with Uranus and Gemini, where Uranus and Taurus was really trying to shake shit up, but it was in the most stubborn sign, so it could have been still meeting a lot of resistance. And now we're in Gemini, which is, I said before, mutable air, so the change is happening fast, and it's happening with more ease, and all that stubbornness and all that stuff with Taurus is like, we're really intellectualizing it now too, because Gemini rules that mind. And so we're seeing it more clearly. Like, Uranus is like the opposite of Neptune, where Neptune is like foggy and hazy and illusionary and like mind games and stuff. And then Uranus is like, wake up. Eyes ripped open, like the veil is ripped away and the awakening is happening. And so, like third eye awakenings could be happening at this point, like needing to go and do a psychedelic journey, like being with a shaman, being with, sitting with plant medicines and things like this that are actually like facilitated and healthy ways of working with the psychedelic realms and the psychic abilities and all this other stuff. Like, this is a really deep time for that, for going deeper into those psychic realms and to feel those actually coming online, feeling it like an energetic electric wave through the body. Uranus is that electric energy, and it can be a rude awakening, or it can be a, it could very well be more prone to be a rude awakening at this point, but it could also be like, if we've been doing the work and we've been keeping staying vigilant with what's been going on, and we've been following the astrology, we might be feeling really good about what's going on. Even though it can still be emotionally turbulent and intense, we could really be feeling like we truly are on the right track with that trine to the North Node. That's that true north that we're all headed towards right now, and that's that Pisces energy, that spiritual energy. We want that spiritual energy. We don't want that psychosis, which is the other half of it, or the other side of the coin. There could also be a strong feeling of release after all the pressure that's been building. So if you think about the idea of death and the idea of sex, there's a build up, right? Our whole lives we're building up to this point of death, and all of a sudden when we are actually at the point of death, there's a release. There's a feeling like we're leaving our physical body, and I would imagine that it feels like a relief for the soul to put down the old heavy weight, especially if you have lived a long life and you have a really broken down body, and then you're all of a sudden you're free, and you get to put down that heavy weight. And you know, with sex, it's like this build up and build up and build up and build up of energy, and then you have your climax, and there's a release, and it's like this bliss and this ecstasy, which I imagine is another thing that happens with death. You know, you see the way that the brain scans look like when someone dies, and it's like a burst of like ecstasy and DMT, actually. So that's another conversation. But so anyways, there is a release point that we could be feeling, and I think it's important for us to remember that life is meant to be enjoyed, and that pleasure is not a sin, and that pleasure is not to be demonized, and that pleasure is human. Of course, there is always a slippery slope with that, and I'm not saying just do whatever makes you happy and like just follow the pleasure, because that is not a very sound philosophy. But I think there's a lot of people that have demonized pleasure, and especially with the conditioning from churches and with, you know, society in general, it's like sex is very taboo, and a lot of people have gotten to a point where they just completely deny themselves of pleasure and of the body and of like worldly pleasures. It doesn't even have to be just sex. Like it can be, you know, like magic, for instance. Like we've demonized magic, which is literally just hanging out with nature and like understanding like the nature of nature and the energetic depth that plants and animals have, the magic that they have, and you know, we've demonized that, and it's really crazy. It's like we've demonized feminine intuition. We've demonized people who worship the feminine. You know, like earth worshiping and pagan worship has been demonized and has been, you know, literally completely exiled from society, and we're really seeing a beautiful resurgence of all that stuff, and it's amazing. But it does of course have its pros and cons, like everything. So anyways, I'm here to encourage you to lean into your magic, as long as you're not hurting anyone and you're not hurting yourself. Like coming back to that core question of, is this creating good things in the world, or is this creating despair and darkness and pain and suffering? Because when we can get that simple about something, I think we can really pretty easily see like what side of the spectrum we're on with that, with whatever situation we're dealing with. So keep coming back to that, and I think like if you are someone who has been feeling resistance about leaning into those types of things, now is going to be a beautiful time where that resistance is maybe released, and you know, maybe you could finally feel like you're taking off the chains, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I was so afraid to let go for so long, because that moment of actually letting go is really beautiful, and it feels so good. So, right, that could be what we're feeling right now, and I think it's everything that's happening right now in the world is happening in a very strange but also cosmically perfect way, because we are seeing people starting to awaken on a collective scale. We are seeing people start to see the world differently. We're seeing more and more social norms being broken, and we're seeing more and more people waking up to the suffering that has been kind of hiding in the background for a long time. You know, like everybody's freaking out about money right now and how the prices are so high, and that is totally a Scorpio thing, right? Oil is a Scorpio thing because it's something that is excavated from the earth, from underneath the surface of the earth. And you know, it's just wild, because we're finally waking up and seeing like, wait, we haven't been making livable wages. We've had all these prices go up, but our wages have stayed the same. This isn't fair. And so there's so many levels to like why we should be, or why we could be feeling extreme amounts of rage, extreme amounts of emotional turbulence right now, because when our financial stability, right, that's that Taurus sun, is messed up, our emotional stability and our mental stability is also messed up. Like, they are intrinsically connected. And there is maybe a mind game going on with needing to liberate ourselves from any of those mindsets, and like that Uranus Gemini liberation from whatever mindsets are keeping us stuck. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I think there is a complete, like, maybe removing yourself completely from the system that is the answer. Like, I'm thinking of that Pluto Aquarius. It's like literally just removing ourselves, not in this way that the techno bros are trying to get us to believe that is our only hope, like moving to Mars or like literally leaving the planet. I would say going into nature, going into an off-grid type living, that's going to be the thing that I can point to the most right now. I haven't exactly figured it out, especially with that Pluto in Aquarius. It's like, let's all come together and live in community. Let's live in a, maybe off-grid village type style. But because it is Aquarius, there is a futuristic aspect to it, right? So like whatever technologies are coming forth, can we use them in a way that they do assist us to break the status quo, to end these toxic systems that have caused suffering and that perpetuate a patriarchal mindset in the world? And can we, let those technologies help us without them harming us? Again, very delicate balances on a lot of different levels here that are taking place. So I want to say that the Death card is the card that is associated with Scorpio. And like we've already said, there is a part of us that never dies. The soul does not die, just the body does. And, there is always a rebirth. And whatever has died is acting as compost. So can we reframe this idea of death, and can we see it as a release point instead of as this end-all, terrible, horrible thing that we should, just add to our list of why we're a victim, add to our list of why we validate our own suffering. And I'm not saying we shouldn't validate our own suffering and we shouldn't tend to our inner child and do that shadow work. I'm saying that's inevitable. We have to do those things. But we also have to move from that victim mentality into a deeply empowered state where, these systems want us to be disempowered. They want us to think that we don't have any power, and we do. And so that's the ultimate lesson, I think, with this full moon, is remembering our power, remembering that our energy is worth protecting and sacred, and it is the most powerful thing on this earth, period, point blank. And so there's a quote, and I am going to tell you where it's from, but you have to promise not to laugh, okay? Courage is not the absence of fear, rather than the judgment that something else is more important. And that's from the Princess Diaries 2. Because, Devil Wears Prada 2 has the Princess Diaries, Anne Hathaway, as one of the suggested. And so, of course, I've been going down memory lane in the Princess Diaries stuff. And I just was like, that is such a perfect Scorpio quote. So I'm adding it in. I don't care. You can judge me, whatever. I am a princess. I am a girl. I am a girl who has born in the 90s. Like, I grew up watching that shit. So, I think nostalgia is just such a big, huge theme with this Jupiter and Cancer too. It's like very just like reminiscent and like memories are coming up. But it's like maybe with the trine to Jupiter, it's like we're looking back, we're able to look back on those memories fondly now, with a sense of optimism rather than a sense of despair and like a sense of like, oh, I there's something wrong with me. Like, why couldn't those last forever? You know, like nothing lasts forever. That's a big one. Nothing lasts forever. As much as we as a society want to cling to the idea that there is a such thing as permanence, impermanence is the nature of the universe. And I've said this so many times in so many of my videos, but that is the most incredible spiritual lesson that I've ever learned in my life, is that the nature of the universe is impermanence. And the sooner that we can realize that, the better. The more that we can truly surrender to that, the better. The more suffering will be relieved. And that is a very long process that probably never ends. And, because it's just our nature to want to cling and want to hold on to the good things and to run away from the bad things. So let's really ask ourselves, what is it we've been avoiding? What is it that we are outsourcing our power to and forgetting our own power and, leaking our energy to, and really just come back into our center, come back to our sacred practice and sacred relationship with spirit, our relationship to our craft, our relationship to our bodies, like creating safety in the body, all these different huge themes. I really just, I'm not trying to sugarcoat any of this. There can be some really big emotional turbulence coming up. And so actually just knowing that Mercury, because it is conjunct exactly Chiron the day of this full moon, it is going to be moving on into Taurus on May 2nd as well, which is also when the moon moves into Sagittarius. So by the day after this full moon, we will be feeling a lot of relief from that energy that we're having. Okay, so that is what we have. That's my quote. I am going to pull a card. We're going to check out our animal oracle deck, and as I cleansed already, I am here to ask what animal oracle card we need for this Scorpio full moon collective reading here on YouTube. Please let us know. Okay. We got the dog. I forgot to talk about Scorpio being like fiercely loyal and how that betrayal part that we're feeling, that said in the energy of like the betrayal, if we're feeling that Scorpio energy is like, it's so loyal and it's all in. It cannot go halfway into anything. It is all in intensely up to a point where it could reach obsessiveness, which we don't want. It's okay to be obsessed with certain things, but like obsession is maybe never really a good thing. Like we got to watch that one. And that fierce loyalty. And if we've been betrayed, and if you do have big Scorpio energy, I feel you. It's like that betrayal goes deep because we don't let people in very often. We don't give our trust away that easy. And yeah, if there's a betrayal, I'm like dog loyal. So it's definitely part of it. So let's say that bit. Let's look at the card. It says devotion, protection, and service. Dogs have long been the domesticated companions and servants of humans. They have also frequently been sacrificed for the benefit of a master or group. Northwest Native American myths describe dogs carrying out various tasks for the glory of their masters. Western Himalayan peoples annually sacrifice dogs to protect themselves against disease or misfortune. In the mountain regions of Japan, villagers would importune the gods for black rain-filled clouds by sacrificing a black dog. And there's a black dog with kind of what looks like a full moon. Also a crescent moon. And then, like, it's wearing a collar made of eyes with teardrops. And then there's a face, a human face with teardrops. But the 2 eyes are blinded, and only the third eye with a bunch of other third eyes at the top are being seen. So that's pretty cool and wild, and like a way deeper message than I would have guessed for the dog card. So yeah, where are we loyal to a fault, right? Because that could be where we're holding on too tightly, and it's like, you know, maybe we're holding on and we are like, see, I'm a good person. Like, I'm trying to prove myself with Aries energy. I'm trying to prove that I'm so loyal. And it's like, dude, this has become so toxic. What are you doing? You know, like, that could very well be the case with some people. Like, putting down your ego because you think that you need to be loyal forever because of that conditioning, right? That Pluto and Aquarius bit, that conditioning from the people, those mind games, and, you know, like, really just needing to let go. Or maybe you're someone who tends to run away fast and to let fear run the show with Pluto or with Scorpio. And it's like, now is the time to stay in the uncomfortable feelings. You're going to have to be the one to figure out what's going on for you, but there's definitely like a loyalty aspect here that is big in the piece, you know, fixed energy, very like just rigid, not wanting to change, or, you know, being too quick to pull the trigger when things get uncomfortable. So, there's our card. That was great. Let's go ahead and pull our rune and see what we got. What rune do we need for this Scorpio full moon? Here we go. Okay. Okay. So, this is the yew tree, Awaz. I feel like we just keep getting this one. The rune suggests progress. This does not mean quick turnarounds, but rather that persistence and endurance are necessary. Since yew trees are often found around graveyards, there's also a connection to death and endings, suggesting that it could be important for you to clear out people, situations, and things that are no longer needed as you work towards your desired goal. Period. So that was perfect. I think also, you know, with it being trine the North Node, it's like, where are you headed? Where are you moving forward into? And you're moving higher. You're being asked to go higher. And, you know, like I said, with that Uranus and Taurus the past 7 years, we have perhaps been asked to upgrade the quality of our lives, the quality of our choices, the quality of what we consume in our food choices, you know, what products we use on our skin and our hair, and, you know, like our senses were stimulated in a very electric way with that Uranus in Taurus, and now the psychic senses are coming online with Gemini, Uranus, Gemini. And so it's like, we're being asked to go higher. We're being asked to get serious about our spiritual mission, the work that is required to stabilize our psychic abilities, because it's a deeply, you know, unstabilizing thing. That's why people are afraid of Kundalini energy, because there is a very good chance that people who become awakened before they're ready, or before they have done the practices that are kind of like the prerequisites to awakening your Kundalini, which is stuff like, you know, changing your diet and sitting in meditation and learning how to do your yoga and how to have discipline with your spiritual practices, and all these things that help to regulate the nervous system and create more capacity for us to hold that electric charge of that Kundalini awakening. If you think about like the body being the what's the word? If something is plugged in and it's not capable of holding that charge, it's gonna blow a fuse, right? And so we don't want to blow a fuse with these great awakenings that are occurring. So like, we're being asked to get serious. Scorpio is like, go deep, go deeper, so that you can root down your roots deeper, so you can have more stability, more capacity, so that you can hold this awakening that is occurring. Whether any of us like it or not, there is awakening occurring, and we all have an individual responsibility to do our part and to take accountability and to do the work around it, right? And so my hope and prayer is that this Scorpio full moon is a brave new step into the unknown, into the darkness, into a deeper level of healing, a deeper level of remembering our own magic and remembering how powerful we are. And so if you do feel called to get a reading, my books are open. Message me below or find my email in the bio and send me an email about booking, and we will get you set up. I also will be posting again in 2 weeks for the Taurus new moon. I really am so excited about this Scorpio full moon because I am a Scorpio stellium, and I'm hosting a Beltane ceremony on May 2nd. So actually the day when all these energies start to shift into more lighter energies. And so if you are local, I would love to invite you to my Beltane ceremony, and I would love to encourage you to sit with the feeling of the inner masculine and feminine coming together, uniting, and harnessing your creative energy for good, for whatever it is that you want to create in your life, whatever legacy that you're creating. Just know that you have the power to make your dreams a reality at this point. And I wish you all a happy Scorpio full moon.